do more with less. We've all heard that. Giving the presentation is Ray Owens. Ray is the president of DXM Marketing. He's a leading firm in data analytics, location intelligence, and targeted marketing services. For the talk about business analytics and marketing intelligence, there's often a lack of action that follows. A lot of us gather data, but then don't know what to do with it. And he likes this quote from Eric Clapton. When it comes to big data, Ray thinks Eric Clapton said it best. It's in the way that you use it. Let's welcome Ray. Ray, two things. At the end of the session, there's going to be a question and answer period.
Gotcha.
If you have a question, please hold up your hand, and I'll come around with a microphone. But Ray, could you tell us something about yourself that we don't know from your bio?
We were talking about this earlier. For the last 2 years, this is our third year speaking at Geekend. In the last 2 years, I'm a big Beatles collector, so I always bring something related to the Beatles that I've collected that year. This year, I can't do that because for the first time, I met Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney this year for the first time. Ringo and Ringo, yeah. Last two. Couldn't get them to come. And as I was saying, the way you meet those guys, and I figured it out, you have to actually join their charities. And when you join their charities, they give you 1 week's notice to come out and see them. So if you can drop everything and go in 1 day or 1 week, you can meet the 2 surviving Beatles. All right.
Thank you, Ray. I
Thanks.
forgot to mention I'm from Host of City Toastmasters. If you want to become a better public speaker, come visit us. Thank you.
Bill, thank you very much. Okay, well, welcome everybody, and thanks for dropping in. We want to say thank you to the sponsors and to the organizers of Geekend. This is our third year doing this. We really enjoy participating. And hopefully we have something relevant and interesting for you guys to see and hear about. In fact, a lot of this is our own experience that we're sharing with you. So to get started, just a little bit about ourselves real quick. We've been here in the area for over 20 years. We actually started on Hilton Head Island and moved over to Savannah in the late 1990s. We were over on Chatham Parkway for a long time, and we moved downtown with another office down to MLK just a couple of years ago. In fact, we moved the offices this weekend, in fact, as we say today, over to Gordon Street. But we've been here, and as a company, we're a targeted marketing firm. We use a lot of data analytics to help our clients grow their businesses with advanced analytics for whatever channel you need to do for advertising purposes. We started out as a direct mail marketing company 20 years ago, and we've evolved into the digital space. So we always start with analytics, start with profiling. We've moved into the digital space today. And over that time, we've been very, very fortunate to work with some wonderful brands, some national, some regional, some very, very local, and across a wide spectrum of verticals. And this is what's fun with data. If you can use data analytics for multiple verticals, this is a great palette to do that on. Anywhere from automotive, real estate, healthcare, I mentioned retail, like supermarkets, for example, telecommunications, and not only in healthcare, but in urgent care as well, because urgent care, a little bit different animal because it's very retail driven. So these tools apply specifically to that. Also too, just a little, while I'm here today, we do a lot with advanced analytics. We're doing a lot in terms of database management, as well as using it in the digital sphere. So we built this kind of cool platform on the back of some of the Oracle technology. And this year, we were recognized by Oracle as a platform innovator, their Excellence Awards for the way we actually do this. So what I'm going to show you is something we built. Oracle thinks it's kind of neat. They gave us a little love this year as a result. And so we all got to go out to San Francisco and collect it. But the coolest thing was we were on stage with Procter & Gamble, Macy's, Ambev, who owns Anheuser-Busch. And we were the smallest company in the country to get this award. So it was a really nice shout out for Savannah to come to San Francisco and show that we were doing some things that were really neat. So in talking about advertising, and especially in the digital space today, one of the hardest things that we have to face with our clients is getting our arms around measuring how these campaigns work. So it's not just using digital services, but it's marketing in a digital world and applying some good old time metrics to that. So spoiler alert, we're talking about ROI. And so typically in the marketing arena, if you're looking about branding, reach, likes, direct, whatever that might be, at the end of the day, where's ROI? I spent all this money, I have all this exposure. What was my return? Was it worth it? Do I spend more? Do I spend less? Do I reallocate that spend? So all that comes from understanding that. So what we're going to sort of show you in some of these tools and methodologies that we use is really what matters at the end of the day. We get hung up a lot on CPM. What does it cost to actually run a campaign? We're going to talk about really, let's focus on ROI. Who cares what it costs if it gets us the return that we need? And so let's just make sure we do that in an efficient way. And also, when you think about ROI, think about the cost of acquisition. What did it cost to get that customer in the door? What did it cost to get that conversion? So rather than worry about, did I pay a $5 CPM? Did I pay a $10 CPM? Let's look at the cost of acquisition. Let's look at the return on investment on that marketing spend. And then what we call true conversions. There's conversions versus clicks, where conversions are, let's fill out a form, leave an email address, and that might be an online conversion. We're talking about actually walked in, got online, maybe walked into a brick and mortar store and actually did a deal. Physically made a purchase, gave you money, how that works. So that's what we're talking about, true conversions. Who actually made a purchase, gave you guys revenue. Now, why do we worry about this? We've learned quite a bit in this space over the last couple of years, especially from inserting all these verticals into it, that in typical digital advertising, there's a lot of impressions being thrown out there versus social, display, or whatever the channel might be that's digital if it's mobile. Today, and this is quoted by Forrester Research, that 90% of retail sales today still happen offline, meaning people walk into a brick and mortar location and make a purchase. Even with Amazon and the online sphere going on, there's still a ton of activity going on outside of online. So this 90% you're serving digital ads to, they don't click, they don't actually do a deal with you, they walk physically into a brick and mortar store and make a purchase with you. We're seeing this in large numbers, and we're trying to figure out how to track that activity. And as we were talking about that, over 62% of folks currently in a browsing session are not going to leave that browsing session to click on your ad. They're just not going to do it. They might see it, it might resonate with them, they might see it 7 times, and they might come back to you on their own, but they're just not going to click away from their current browsing session. 52% of people who are buying a product in a store, they're noticing this from Mobile Watch, they're still researching the product while they're inside your store. So they're in Best Buy, and they're actually looking up and getting ratings and things on those types of products, as well as many, many other brick and mortar stores. So just know that, again, they're inside your store, they've seen your ad, they're researching you, and then they make a purchase. And none of that gets linked to digital activity, unfortunately. And then one of the things that we have discovered in our own metrics, we're able to track, and I'm going to show you how in just a minute, how to track someone who's actually seen an ad, through a banner ad, through some sort of display ad, through Facebook. They've actually seen your ad, they don't click on it, they don't engage with you, but they come in and do a purchase. We found that 60% of those purchases, or what we call display ad conversions, happen without them ever touching your ad. But they saw it, it resonated, and they still come in and they make a purchase. So we're going to show you how we do that. This space is amazingly full. I mean, just amazing. Players are coming in and out at all times. Everywhere from the big users, the DSPs, the ad exchanges, the aggregators, the networks, the publishers that are using this data. The space gets more and more crowded every single day. And I tell you, and to make sense of it, to stay up with it, I don't know how anybody does it. We have a really smart group of folks at our company that spend a lot of time looking at this and evaluating this in certain channels. And we found sort of a certain spot where we think we focus and where we get the most impact. And it's actually a pretty small area. Right here in the middle, these data aggregators or these data exchanges. If you look at BlueKai, and we put BlueKai at the top, and then the data supplier is Experian. Experian has all the offline data. It's all the consumer data out there with their name and address. then you have these aggregators like BlueKai that have all this transactional data inside a digital exchange. Now there's lots of digital exchanges. We focus on BlueKai because one, it's owned by Oracle. Two, it's the largest digital exchange in the world. It has the most data partners feeding it digital activity so that we can see what our offline folks are doing with our online experience. So keep that in mind. We're going to focus on offline, online, just here in this little spot right here. One of the things you guys probably realize, and this is really prodigious in its size, is that in the digital world, with all that you do online, and things you're doing online, things you're doing just at your home, all is getting recorded and shared, sometimes anonymously, sometimes you've opted in, you've opted out. But in a typical taxonomy or data architecture of what's inside of a digital exchange, it's huge. And this is, if anyone's named Sally, I apologize, but this is just an example of through her mobile IDs, through her emails, through her actual physical postal address, all the things that connected with her, even cookies she's leaving behind on mobile, not mobile devices, but desktop devices or tablets. We're seeing this cataloging going on. So the publishing side of it with Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, if she's sharing her email address, it's floating around in there. So are the cookies, so are emails. Maybe she has multiple emails. So there's a lot of information going on with one person that's swirling inside these exchanges. And for BlueKai, what we realized, and one of the reasons we use BlueKai, because they do a really good job of collecting the data. They do a really good job of keeping it anonymous so that you can use it for marketing, but they don't give away individual privacy concerns. So BlueKai is just an example of a data exchange. Over 45,000 data points on any given person floating around in there based on purchasing activity. And the reason being, it's made up of over 300, I think 350 data partners. It's MasterCard, Visa, Zillow, Trillia, Expedia, Kayak. All the big digital guys and brick and mortar shops sort of gotten together and are sharing their data anonymously, and which is what most exchanges do. It's all shared anonymously. If you go into the exchange as a person, they strip out all your privacy information. They just put you in as a hashtag, and they all share the same hashtag, except they don't know who it is inside. So Ray Owens will float around in there and be picked up by Sprint, by MasterCard, by Zillow, by something I did on Trillia, looking for real estate. So all these things start to aggregate and build up that you can see a sort of a digital pattern going on with folks inside these exchanges. So with that being said, the way we build our platform is that for years, we only work with offline data. We, and I won't go into too much detail, I'll show you some examples, is that we do a lot of deep dive profiling on folks, on customer files to help our clients get more of them. It's sort of like creating a lookalike, but creating a lookalike in the offline world. So we've built this consumer database through our partnerships with epsilons and big data providers. So we have over 260 million consumer records with up to 800 variables. That means name, address, car they drive, whatever is publicly available gets collected in the offline. Then it gets ported over to the online where we see in real time what folks are doing. Not individually, but as an aggregate. So we put them all in there, and we see that 42% of them are watching The Survivor. 15% are buying Subarus. I mean, we can see in the aggregate what's kind of going on. So for us, we profile a customer's file. We get a profile built. We do predictive scoring. Once we know who they are, we project the rest of them into the rest of the United States. We align with the business needs of our client. Let's say it's Sprint trying to get more cell phone customers. And then we implement these behavior or trigger events inside the exchange that we know we have the right prospect. When are they in market to actually make a purchase? So then inside the exchange, we can see them looking for a cell phone or some other device and serve them ads. That's the sort of the platform. To get it done, when you have to analyze and create these lookalikes, you hear everyone has their algorithm, or they have some way that they're doing lookalikes or building it. We have to do the same thing with the offline file. When we get a customer file, and we're trying to create some prospects, we're using a lot of advanced analytics. We get some smart folks on the team that use these things I don't know what any of them mean, absolutely, except random forest, something about that. But they use all this advanced profiling to create the perfect, what we call the perfect prospect file offline. So we've identified that you at a certain address, are our prospect. So we've done that through our own sort of external analytics. And the beautiful thing, we're all hearing about Tableau, Domo, Marketo, and some of these visualization things. The beautiful thing about these visualization tools sit on top of all this data. So when you punch it out, it comes out with some really good insights, gives us some good read on who's really in market, who's not in market. Is this your right profile? Is it not the right profile? So a lot of good visualization comes out of the process as well. And the one thing you learn about profiles, if you create a customer persona or a profile, no matter what you know about them, it's really not helpful unless you can project that profile into the rest of the population. Because it's like, all right, I know who I have, but where do I find more like them? And so using the same analytics, having the US population or having the US households, we're able to go out and create these same lookalikes out in the marketplace and rank them from highest to lowest. Highest meaning these are the folks most likely to walk in the door and make a purchase from you. In fact, the index is 500, which means they're 5 times more likely to come make a purchase from you than anybody else in that neighborhood or surrounding that house. Rank 2 is 4.5 times, 3.5 times, 3 times. So you step down the ranks until it starts to normalize back to the population. That means this person is no different, looks no different from the rest of the United States. So we're trying to find folks in these upper tiers that really match our profile, show a higher match rate of those characteristics that they have, and then from there we can actually extract them and start to move them into the marketing sphere. You can send them direct mail piece, you can put them in the digital exchange and start to serve them digital ads. So here's our audience right here. We got cumulatively about 11 million households around this national footprint for actually marketing. Now, inside these exchanges, I told you they're collecting a lot of information, they're floating around, but the amount of data that's in there, all these exchanges, 650 million emails, 350 million mobile devices, the physical postal addresses, the cookie, the cookie logs in here are in the billions, that people are leaving footprints everywhere you go. Now this part, I think a lot about privacy because the only good thing about who the gatekeeper on this is that they're keeping all this private. They're not sharing individual information, nor do you want to know this individual information. But if you want to be in this exchange or not in the exchange, it's kind of like the do not call list. Take yourself off of the phone list. Do not mail. Say, hey, don't send me any more mail. You can do the same thing and start to suppress items about yourself. And even with all that available, I'm still surprised at the incredible amount of data that's still out there floating around. The people have opted in and said, yeah, I want relevant information. I'll share a bit about me in order to make that happen. So the way we treat this, if you think about marketing in a digital world right now, we really focus, because of analytics, we focus on industries what we call are episodic. Episodic means the purchases are infrequent. You don't typically do these things on a daily basis, like buy food or maybe buy movies or things of this nature, which happens all the time. When you're in financial services, if you're getting a loan, a car loan or something, that's episodic. You only get it very infrequently. Healthcare, the same thing. You don't go to a hospital in urgent care unless there's some unique event that happens. Real estate, you don't purchase real estate every day, I guess unless you're a broker. But real estate, that's an episodic thing, something you do. And even travel. You have frequent travelers, but then you have folks who plan their vacation once a year, try to mix it up, take the family. So that's kind of an episodic thing. And those are harder to predict. It's like you have the perfect person who could buy this real estate, but how do you know they're ready to buy the real estate or they're even in market to buy the real estate? Some of the other things, as I mentioned earlier, are kind of easier to track. So when you're in episodic, here's kind of how we're approaching this. if you're using AdWords or using some sort of blanketing tool where you're pushing ads out, you're just doing display ads. You're doing some lookalikes that are anonymous. You typically are just pushing to whatever your spend is. You're hoping that you'll get some conversions from that. So it's kind of we call it a general push. It means you're pushing without really knowing who the audience is, and you're relying on someone else to sort of tell you who define that might be. And if you get to search, think about urgent care. All of us probably, if we're involved in marketing, have some sort of tie to search, which is a really important component of your marketing mix. But if someone types in urgent care here in Savannah, then all of a sudden 7 competitors come up in the search results. If you haven't paid to get to the top, if you're not in the top of the listings, it becomes a sort of a competitive free-for-all. You're in there, you're in the top rankings, that's where you want to be. However, so are all of your competitors. It'd be nice to get an ad in front of these folks without all your competitors being right there on the same page. So we go right back up to what we say is intent or just right. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to sort of illustrate that happens, is it'd be nice to have the advertising ready. You have the prospect loaded that you know could use your service. And when they show that they have a need, that's when they get your ad. And it's before search, and it's not too early with a general push where you're just throwing impressions out and hoping something sticks. It'd be nice not to deliver an impression until it's actually relevant and they're showing intent. And again, we're leading to that right now. So, it's the usual in advertising. It's our 3 R's: right message, right time, right person. So with all this out there, with all these channels out there, and the way we have to approach them, how do you ever figure out your spend, other than allocating to a couple of key channels and hoping you get the return? We face the same thing. We face the same thing with our clients. We represent the marketing budgets of a lot of different verticals, and this question weighs heavily on all of us, and so we have to be really smart about how we go about executing that. I'm picking display, and we've been focusing on display as a company for a while because for us, display, and all of you who might have experience with it, to me it's always sort of been, it's been one sort of the neutral thing. It's sort of a mass vehicle. It's hard to track unless they fill out a form and actually come into you. It's hard to track the actual return. You never know how much to spend. It just seems to be sort of like the Wild West versus Facebook or something where you can actually see engagement, you can see likes, you can see some viral things. And now even today, Facebook will actually help you match back your display programs. So for example, and we're starting to do this because they just opened this up late last year, is if you serve Facebook ads or you're in a Facebook feed and you're running a retail shop, at the end of your Facebook campaign or an incremental part of your Facebook campaign, you can hand Facebook, hey, here's the 2,000 people that came into my shop over the last 3 months. You hand that to Facebook, they'll actually tell you, yeah, 1,112 of these saw your ad, and they saw your ad 4 times. And never mind clicks, they saw your ad however many times, and they'll tell you that what those metrics are, that they actually, they came in, they converted with you, and yes, they actually were served your ad. So that way, you had 2,000 people walk in over 3 months. Did it come from Facebook? Did it come from, where would it come from? Facebook will say, over half of them saw your ad, and they're walking in your store. Now, so you look at your Facebook stats, you had a 3% click-through rate, and that was about 4,000 people, anonymous people. And so here they actually give you a little bit of some nice metrics. So we like display because it's got a big reach, you've got a big audience, but if you put the audience in there, if you put the audience into display, if you put the audience into Facebook and push with these intents, then what ends up happening is that anyone who sees your ad or is exposed to your ad, you can see that on the back end. And again, we like display because, think about this, a very large reach, but in a very targeted way. It's almost like you wish with TV, your commercial only went out when you knew they were sitting there, and they didn't TiVo you, and they saw your, picking that precise moment is exactly how we're trying to do this with display. So, real simply, we do the modeling up front, we find the perfect audience, we score these folks, We take a section of that audience, probably a sampling, put them into the display, the digital exchanges. And this is the beautiful thing. We know they're a qualified prospect. We know they can afford our purchase. We know whatever we know about them. And what we do now is we wait for them to exhibit one of these triggers. And in this particular case, this is for a financial loan service company that gives you loans, can help you with loans on home improvement, maternity, health care things. If you ever need to get a loan, so what happens is we can wait and see if someone is shopping for Jiffy Lube, or they're shopping for Tire Kingdom, they're shopping for some major automotive purchases, we can serve them an ad for our loan product. And so what we found out is that when people get these loans, they do one of 30 things with them. And these 30 things are these different triggers. They're going back to school. They're making big retail purchase items. They're buying an ATV or a boat. We see these 30 things that they're doing with money. So what we do is we go into the exchange and we say, okay, if anyone's buying a boat, an ATV, looking for education, any of these triggers, they're around our banking location, we serve them the ad at that moment. So what you're doing is you're only serving the ad when they have the in-market trigger. Versus, I've got this perfect group of folks who could all afford my loans, let me just push to all of them and hope someone comes in. We wait until they actually raise their hand and show one of these behaviors. They get the ad, and then at the end of the campaign, like I was saying with Facebook, we can see who was actually exposed to the ad and match it back to the retailer of who actually made the purchase or came inside and bought a product or service. And the beautiful thing about this is not everyone makes a purchase. You expose them to your ad. You wish everyone made the purchase. They don't. And what we have found is that there will be people who convert, who actually buy your product or service. Then there will be the people who saw your ad several times, did not make a purchase, but they've been predisposed to you. So that forms another little bucket to be dealt with later. And for here, we're not going to go into that, but we actually could even follow up with some direct mail, like if it was real estate. Hey, you saw our ad, you didn't come in tour, but here's more about our company or our piece. And we see a lot of activity come out of that file as well. But anyway, just from a visualization perspective, I hope this makes sense on how that works with offline and online. And I'm going to show you a couple of real examples of how this works, and three, I think, is real estate. Real estate is a perfect one because it's episodic. When you can profile your real estate prospect all day long, but not have any idea when they're actually going to make a purchase. So what we do is we have one of our clients, one of the Berkshire Hathaway clients companies is Clayton Homes. Clayton happens to be the largest builder of manufactured homes in the country. So what we did was we built this customer profile. We said, all right, here are the folks that would typically buy this type of purchase. They have 300 sales locations around the country. And through that modeling, we were able to identify 10 million households that look like the perfect customer. Now, we had no idea if they're buying or not. We just know that they're the right target audience. So rather than load all 10 million up, we sampled out 2 million. We just sampled out 20% randomly across these 10 million prospects. We put them into Blue Kite, into a digital exchange, and we just waited for them to show intent. Were they looking for a home? Were they looking for a mortgage? We already knew they were qualified as a prospect, and we're sitting there, and over a 3-month period, 400,000 of them, of the 2 million, raised their hand looking for a home or a mortgage. So that's who we served the ads to. And we were able to find about 2.5 devices per unique person and serve our ads in a responsive way on tablets, on desktops, laptops, mobile devices, serving these ads when we knew that they were online looking for homes or mortgages. Now, they weren't searching, they weren't saying, they were probably on Zillow or they're on Trillia or something, showing intent. And so we pushed our ad to them. Well, fast forward 3 months after the campaign, and even today, 900 registered leads actually came into Clayton Homes, and they ended up making, I think, close to 38 purchases. So they sold 38 homes over the course of 6 months, 3 during and 3 post. So what ended up happening was we got a 12-to-1 ROI. It means they made a little bit of, they actually make profit on the home sale. We don't count the whole price. We count just their incremental profit. they had X amount of sales, we divided out by the marketing campaign, and it was a 12 to 1. So for every dollar they spent on this display campaign, this process, they got $12 back in new revenue. Now, think about this. We already identified 2 million prospects. Had we just gone ahead and pushed all 2 million, and we could have, and we would have gotten most of these people because we already had them queued up. So had we done that, we still would have had a positive ROI. It would have been 3 to 1 and not 12 to 1. The reason being, we would have paid a lot more money to expose those other 1.6 million people who weren't in the market. So by focusing the spend on who actually raised their hand, we were able to maximize that and get a large return. So that's an episodic way. It's kind of how you use this particular process. And the way you match back again is at the end of the campaign, because we physically put the prospects into the exchange, we're allowed to see who was exposed to an ad. We don't know anything about them in the exchange in any singular way, but we know that these 400,000 people actually saw the ads, or X number of ads. And so by knowing who those people were, we could look at the Clayton Homes new customer file or new prospect file and do the actual match back and see that, wow, 921 were served an ad that actually came in, did a tour, visited the location. So again, episodic, but a very, very targeted way to get them in the door. Urgent care, and I mentioned this at the outset, is a little bit different. That in the typical exchange, you can see people buying a car, making tire purchases, or they're searching and they're looking for and they're showing intent. In healthcare, you don't want to know ailments. I mean, it's illegal to know ailments. It's against the law. You don't want to know. You don't even want to play in that space. So what you have to do contextually is that one thing about urgent care, unlike a healthcare system, if you're Memorial or St. Joe Candler, you typically draw from the county. You have a pretty far-reaching pull for these types of healthcare systems. Urgent care is a retail-driven. They're on a corner with fighting for their retail space, just like everybody else, because typically in urgent care, when you have that need, you're going right there. You want the closest proximity. It's there. And you're not going to drive past 5 urgent cares to get to a 6th urgent care unless they're just super, super great operator. So the mindset is be really retail focused. So what we do the same sort of profiling process. We find, okay, who's visiting you now? Where are the lookalikes? Where do they live? And what we found is we just go right into a location, and this little blob up here, this sort of Doppler thing, this density, is about a 3-mile area. And so what we do is we load the entire population up around the urgent care center. And we divide them into 2 groups. One means they look most like our current patient load, and then there's everybody else that looks a little less. Now, the thing about urgent care, it transcends demographics. If you have a need, you have a need. And so we found that rather than focusing on a top tier, we look at the whole population and hope that we can be there as a service when they have a need. So we've loaded the population up around there, and what we do is we use contextual ad serving, meaning, let's say you're on WebMD and you're just looking up symptoms. Now we don't know what you're looking for. We don't know what you're looking for. We just know that you're visiting WebMD, or you're visiting Livestrong, and you're on there. You might be looking up a hip replacement. We don't know. And urgent care and hip replacements are not compatible. So just for the fact that, gosh, at 10 o'clock, there's activity on WebMD around so we serve these ads to say, hey, if you have a need, if you're looking for it, we're right here. We're XYZ urgent care right around the corner from you. And we serve these ads because, again, when people typically are getting up and it's time to look for an urgent care, it's go to search, type in urgent care, and up comes every competitor, and it's a free-for-all, and trying to break through as your location of service. So by contextually just watching activity, having the population already loaded up, we can make sure that our healthcare message is the first one that they see. And so this is something we don't know what they're doing specifically. It's really just kind of vague. But we're like, our purpose is get our client's brand in front of them first, if there is a need. And it turns out there is. it's driven more traffic. They're getting a higher walk-in rates. The return on their marketing spends are doing well. It just means that they're top of mind now when these folks have this need and they're coming in the door. So this is, unlike real estate, which casts a bigger net, we're actually kind of getting down very granularly and setting up this digital campaign. Let me just checking time. Okay, a few more minutes. I only have 2 more examples to show you how this works. This is back to the loan product, and I wanted to do this to sort of show the difference between general display and targeted, or what we call direct display. And this particular bank has 3 loan products, and up top where it says unique impressions, I'm serving impressions, unique impressions to a target audience. And I have a control group going too, because the controls, if you guys have ever done or done general display, typically the controls are a public service ad. So while you're running your campaign, you run some public service ads, just see if your public service ad got as many hits as your own campaign, and then measure the incremental lift between that. So when we looked at the pure click-through rates, okay, look at the purple, those were our click-through rates, and look to the left, the control. The control was just as high as B and C, the 2 loan products. It was just barely under 1 loan product. So we actually had no incremental lift for this campaign because we were just relying on clicks. Our public service message was wildlife.org, and our campaign was a loan. So we found that as many people liked wildlife as they did our loan product, even though they were totally separate. So we look at this and we were like, oh, man, not much lift over control. But because we put the audience in there and we can see that we've exposed these people to ads, how many of them actually came in and actually got a loan from us? So when you go to the last, the yellow, look at the control, very little. They loved wildlife.org, they clicked on it, surfed it, did not come in as a control and actually do a loan with us. But our loan products did convert. So we had a 400% lift in actual conversions over control because we knew who the audience, we had been able to monitor them when we put them inside the exchange. Had we just run a general display campaign with clicks, we would have looked at this and said, it didn't work. But by being able to track them all the way to the transaction, we were able to show a positive return. So we've changed the way we do control now because even though we served a public service ad, it still costs money to serve those ads. You have to pay for the impressions that they clicked on, even though this had nothing to do with your brand. So what we do now is, because we put the audience in, because they're raising their hand showing they have a need for a loan, we'll hold that out. So what will happen is, we have someone in there, they're showing they need a loan, and we don't serve them an ad. We don't, we just hold them out. And then we watch to see what their behavior is compared to the folks who raise their hand and we serve them an ad. So it's completely changed the way we're doing control now. And the thing is, because you're not serving them an ad, but you know they're in the market, your costs are a lot less for the campaign. And then the very last example is that we had this little, I guess, relationship with this company. They were a loyalty company and I thought this was really innovative way to do a loyalty program. It was for airports, actually, airports around the country. Think about this. When you walk into an airport, you're a Delta member, you're an American Airlines, you're a Southwest, you're part of those loyalty clubs. When you walk into the airport, they don't have any idea who you are. You pay for parking, you come in, you buy a newspaper, you buy a cup of coffee, you buy lunch, buy something, and then you get on your airplane and you get your points for your airplane. So what the airports are doing now is like, join the airport loyalty club. So when you pay for parking, when you buy that cup of coffee, anything you do inside the airport, those same purchases can go towards your same points. So they'll say, okay, would you like all these purchases converted to Delta Sky Miles? We want to convert it to Advantage on American. So the nice thing now is that because you're paying for so much for that airport experience, you can actually get more points because they're helping to track it. So they asked us, they said, can you identify who the frequent travelers are around our airport? So yeah, so with our offline data, we profile their file, we see who the lookalikes are, we see who the frequent travelers are within 50 to 60 miles Oh, this is 75 miles. So within Raleigh-Durham Airport, within 75 miles, because folks will drive a little extra when they have to make long flights. Within 75 miles of this airport, there were 160,000 frequent travelers. Frequent. That means they're coming in and out of the airport all the time. We need to get some of that purchasing information in order to create a loyalty program. So the beautiful thing about, we physically found them, you put them into a digital exchange, and through all the travel information, you can see, geez, they're about to leave Raleigh in 7 days or 14 days and travel. So with that kind of information, we can serve very timely ads for these guys. So it's a way to, we have the prospect in there, we can see when they're actually traveling, we're serving the ad for the client and letting them actually get the conversion and do that. Now they didn't share data with us, so we don't know. We just know that from a procedural and a process standpoint, this is something that we'd set up for them the same way. So, anyway, so the last thing I was going to say, this type of process is in making sense of the digital world is so anonymous at this particular time. All the data that's in there, you're typically just using third-party data, using what they've come up with an algorithm. They're telling you, here's your lookalike, but you don't know who the lookalikes are. We did this display campaign for you. You don't know who it went to, and then you rely on your own metrics to see if it worked or not. And the thing is that when we were getting to this space, we realized there were just too many unknowns. That not everybody clicks on an ad, not everybody fills out a form, and not everybody will be a true conversion. There's actually a big chunk more. So as we found out, 60% of the volume is not going through your display campaign. It's coming in on its own. They're using you're using your ads to get research, coming in on their own, doing more research, and actually converting. So, there's different attribution models you can use to sort of tier some of this out. But we like this because if we know who we're putting into the exchange, and our clients will share who their new customers are, then we can actually close that loop and say, you got a very definitive return on your investment marketing spend. So it's been successful for us. It's been a way for us to sort of trek through this. I mean, I just think it's a jungle of providers and services that are all very, very good, but how do you know which one to use and who could get the best return for you? So anyway, that's it. I appreciate you guys putting up with a little AV snack.
Anybody have any questions?
Such a small room.
I know you. I met you last year.
Yeah, I definitely get to meet you last. Okay, so question. This seems like something that's like for like huge businesses. Most of us aren't a part of like these big businesses that you'd be doing. What's some of this, like what can we take from this? If our budget isn't millions of dollars for marketing, our budget's very much lower scale.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And on the introductory slide, I didn't mention this, and I should have, is that we're a small company ourselves, and we've been around about 20 years, and doing marketing for these folks. We typically work with small, medium businesses. Sometimes we get our shot at some larger volume. But what we did, we felt like small and medium businesses were getting shut out by some of these enterprise level things that are going on behind us, especially in the digital exchange. And this Oracle stuff is not inexpensive. And and the reason we are using it and paying the enterprise level is that we get to reuse it for all of our clients. So really what we do is we invest in this enterprise level stuff to share with small and medium businesses. So to your point, for a small business, it's hard to do this. But there are there's a few partners out there, and we're one of them, that will share this kind of technology and share it to give, we call it leveling the playing field for small and medium businesses. Because we think it's unfair that there's 300, 400, 500 companies that crush this every day. And then a lot of us could have access to the same technology if we had those types of budgets. But also to be perfectly transparent, what does it cost to do this? To onboard a list, to actually run a campaign on a monthly basis, there is a minimum, and it's probably around $5,000, $4,500, $5,000. It's probably the minimum to really get full scale out of it. So if you can afford $4,500, $5,000 for a test, let's say, do it for 3 months, see what kind of return you get, and then see if it's scalable. But it's not for the faint of heart if you're buying the whole platform. But for us, there are a lot of companies that can afford that for $5,000 who don't do it because they don't know if they're getting any kind of return on their marketing spend. And that's what we demonstrate. So that's a great question. There is a cost of entry, but it's not impossible.
Let's say even if there's like let's say 5,000 a month's a little bit pricey.
Yeah.
Is there stuff that we could take away from your presentation they could be doing?
Facebook. But let me tell you what, the fact that Facebook now will give you a match pack is huge. I mean, we all run Facebook and we see the likes and they click on our ads, and but we just don't know, did it amount to sales? You watch your pre and post spends, they get an incremental lift. And let's say you don't. Let's say you just kind of trace along. But if you hand your customer file, if you collect customer data, if you collect new customer data, and you share it with Facebook, they'll set up an account for you. You just transfer it in. It costs nothing.
What kind of data are you collecting on your customers?
Well, think about this. If you're buying real estate, you're getting a bank loan, you're doing any of these things, it's name and address. It's name and address. If you can get name, well, actually, for Facebook, it's just email address. Email address.
Emails, phone.
Email.
That.
Email, a phone, or a physical address. They'll match on all three. So what you do, and it costs nothing, because what they'll do is they'll set up the portal for you, you shuttle the data over to them, and then they'll shoot the report back to you and tell you, hey, in the last 2 months, this is what these, and you're like, yeah, wow, 78% saw my Facebook ad, versus 22%. And then you can start to do the math. I spent this much, I only got a 22% return. What was the ROI there? Oh, this gentleman. I'm sorry.
Ray, it's good to learn that you are helping to define my future. I saw a video in which Mark Zuckerberg said at any instant there are 10,000 versions of Facebook around the world. Engineers are essentially A/B testing a certain tweak in their algorithms,
Yes.
then taking that information and refining the overall product. I would imagine for your business that's a similar exercise. Is that true?
It is, because especially that we've taken the opportunity to work in many verticals, and what we see works in one doesn't work in the other, and parts of it. So we're learning as well. And again, our whole slant is marketing, is to bring people in the door, is to fill heads in the beds, whatever it is, get folks in the front door, and then at that point let the client take over the relationship of that person and have their CRM and all that. We're there to really drive traffic, and that's what we've been doing for 20 years. What we found with all this, it's just getting better and better. The tools are better because there's better targeting. We're mailing less than we ever did today. We're doing less display than we ever did because we're only doing it where there's intent. And we're just staying away from the carpet bombing, the retargeting, the annoying retargeting. I mean, all of us here, you buy a pair of shoes and then you get shown the same pair of shoes for the next month. Those types of things got to be cut off. And that's kind of what all this is. Once we know we make a sale, then we're done. We're done. We move on. And so yeah, it's a constant evolution. And fortunately, the guy right behind you does a lot of that, and a few more around here do too. We stack the group over. But to your point, yeah, we employ these tools for that reason. Is just to be smarter, and hopefully, and it's funny. This is our new positioning. I'm going to give you a peek. Is it really we're wanting to make our clients CMOs smarter. So by being their resource, we're feeding these tools to them so that they can make informed decisions and run a more successful campaign overall for their company. So thank you for that. Are you sure? Okay. Everybody good? Well, thank you for your attention and patience.